Now, The Hunt Palmer Show.
He needs care and treatment.
You are now listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Daryl May of Trustee Properties on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Is this a great country or what?
Locking down the middle of the day, live from downtown Baton Rouge. This is Hunt Palmer.
Welcome in. Hunt Palmer coming to you from our studio downtown in the capital city on this Tuesday. It means we're brought to you by Daryl May of Trustee Properties. Got Jacob Beck and Cassie Spazzali back there on the ones and twos. Fired up you're hanging out with us on this Tuesday. Hope your work week is off to a good start. Have our normal Tuesday regulars, Glen West with us at 1:30 talking Tigers. Colin Jeter from the LSU Alumni Association at 2 o'clock. Sharif Ishak at 2:30 talking Saints. Arkansas's athletic director had an interesting appearance at the Little Rock Touchdown Club yesterday. We don't cover Arkansas here, but I do think it absolutely is relevant to everyone in the SEC. And so I want to talk a little bit about that at 2:15. LSU baseball is just on a heater in recruiting. Got a legacy commitment yesterday. We'll talk about it at 1:45. The Saints aren't covering anybody. We'll talk about that. And I want to talk LSU, and we'll start there with our Genesis opening drive.
It's time for Hunt's Opening Drive, presented by Genesis of Baton Rouge.
I tell you all this all the time, but I really like to sit down at my desk to start the day and just start diving into statistics. And oftentimes I have an idea to go look at, and I would say probably 75% of the time, what I've seen with my eyes, what I've observed, is borne out in the statistics. I would say probably like 10, 15% of the time, nope, I'm not right. The statistics do not back up what I'm thinking. And there are a few times where I dive in and it is a monster confirmation, even further than I really anticipated. And that's what happened this morning when I started going into snap counts for LSU's defense. LSU, we know, is playing great defense right now. They have 6 turnovers forced. They have allowed 3 touchdown drives. We know the talent level has been upgraded. That is beyond a doubt. We know that this coaching staff has a team that is bought in. We've heard them talk about it and talk about it and talk about it in every media session that we do. We're going to go to campus later this afternoon, and whatever 2 defensive players we get, I'm sure are going to tell us how much the players have bought in, how much they like this defense, how much they understand what their assignment is relative to this time last year when Blake Baker was in his first year. We know all of these things. One of the things that I may not have talked about enough is the depth that LSU has cultivated here and is using through 3 games. Now, it is a small sample size. 3 games is not a season, but it is a quarter of the season. And it's also a road game against Clemson and a home game against Florida that were very, very close. It doesn't matter how good you think LSU's defense is, if it's a top 5 defense in the country or they've played a couple of bad Power 4 offenses and they look better. That part doesn't matter. What matters is that LSU is playing guys in closely contested games. So the depth is very much relevant no matter what you think of the ultimate ceiling and what this defensive performance level is going to be. And this depth that they have cultivated has been nowhere to be found in the Brian Kelly era on the defensive side. Nowhere. Let's go back to his first year, 2022. Mekhi Wingo was brought in from Missouri that year to play defensive tackle. LSU played 962 snaps, and I promise I'm going to make these numbers easier, so if you're driving around or working out and listening via podcast or whatever the case may be, and the numbers are difficult, I'm going to make them very, very simple, but I'm going to lay them out to begin with. There were 962 defensive snaps that year. Mekhi Wingo played 821 snaps. That is 85% of LSU's snaps. A defensive tackle was on the field. 85% of the snaps. And right next to him, Jaquelin Roy played 70% of the snaps. Of course, that year, Mason Smith got hurt on the first drive of the season. He was out, but injuries happen. And when Mason Smith went down, Mekhi Wingo, 85% of the snaps. Jaquelin Roy, 70% of the snaps at defensive tackle. Through 3 games, let me go to these defensive tackles for LSU. Bernard Gooden leads the way at 61%. 85% for Mekhi Wingo 3 years ago. Bernard Gooden, 61%. Who is second for LSU in terms of snaps at defensive tackle thus far this year? It's Dominic McKinley, 45% of the snaps. Jacobian Guillory has played 37%. Ahmad Bro has played 33%. And they have played Walter Mathis, the true freshman, 13%. Look at those numbers. That is so healthy for a defensive front. And oh, by the way, a defensive front that allowed Clemson to run for 4 yards in the second half and stonewalled Florida at the line of scrimmage as well. Jaden Ball did not get going the entire game. And it's not just defensive tackle, where I laid out Bernard Gooden, 61%, Dom McKinley, 45%, Guillory, 37%, Bro, 33%. It's on the edge as well. Patrick Payton leads all LSU defensive linemen in snaps played. He's played 118. That's only 61% of the snaps. He leads at the edge. He leads on the defensive line. Jack Pyburn right behind that, 59%. Gabe Relaford, 42%. Jamari Butler, 39%. And I would just venture to guess, I know that most of you that are watching these games aren't going back and breaking down the all 22. I know that not a lot of folks are going back and rewatching games. Some are, and that's great. If it's a passion of yours and you like to go back and watch and see how it looks, man, I had a few cocktails during the game, wanted a clear look, awesome. But most people aren't doing that. But I would suggest that as you're watching the game, you're not seeing a huge drop-off. You can't tell what LSU players are out there or aren't out there. And nobody's playing 62% of the snaps on the defensive line. Nobody. That is a huge plus for 2 reasons. 1, you get into SEC play, I promise you, you're not going to keep 8 defensive linemen healthy. You're just not. I'll love it if they do. If that happens, great. Is it realistic? No. And 2, you keep fresh legs. You have built depth in-game for rest purposes, in rotation purposes, and in season for injury purposes or targeting purposes. You back up 1 level. Whit Weeks, first drive, out of the game. Gone. Devon Keys steps in, leads the team in tackles with 14. That's impressive to have a reserve come in and do that. You go back to safety. You find out 2 days before you got to go to Clemson, oh, by the way, A.J. Halsey suspended. Can't play in the first half. Well, you had Jordan Gilbert to put in. And I would suggest that A.J. Halsey is a better player than Jordan Gilbert. But Jordan Gilbert has started 23 games with an SEC program. 23. He's your what? 3rd safety? 4th safety? Either way, the other one is Deshaun Spears, who just came in and played 9 snaps in the dime roll and had 2 interceptions, including a pick 6 against Florida. Not against Southeastern Louisiana. Not against Western Kentucky, against Florida. He's 3rd, 4th, however you want to juggle it. Who's your 3rd corner right now? It's DJ Pickett. 5-star recruit. Had a pick of DJ Lagway. That's because right now, Mansour Delane and PJ Woodland are your starters. That makes Pickett 3rd. Who's 4th? Ashton Stamps is 4th on your depth chart right now. He has started 17 games at LSU. 17. So at every level of this defense, you've got people waiting in the wings to play significant snaps who are proven commodities. That's 4 guys at tackle, 4 guys on the edge, at least 1 linebacker in Devon Keys. I would toss Tylen Singleton into that mix, but he hasn't played as much as Keys. But he's right there. Safety, Gilbert and Spears. Corner, Stamps. Unquestionably, LSU has increased the talent level in this defense. And with Blake Baker calling the shots, they're phenomenal on the field each Saturday. But the thing that generally gets tested over time is depth. And they've got it in spades. I personally don't think right now that I'm going to put this LSU defense in my top 3 over the last 25 years. That 03 defense, special. 11 defense, special. The next one you can put up for grabs. 07 won a championship. I thought 19 was extremely talented. They've had defenses that had Tre'Davious White and Jamal Adams and Kendall Beckwith and Arden Key on them in the late Miles years. You had Jalen Mills, longtime NFL player, on those defenses, had really good players on those defenses. So I'm not ready to heap all that praise on this group. They got a lot to prove against a lot better offenses than what Clemson's putting out there right now and what Florida's putting out there right now. I am willing to concede that the two teams they have played with big flashy brands on the side of their orange helmets have not played well through the first month. But right now, as far as depth goes, as far as reinforcements go, like, this is a pretty special group they've put together. I don't know if the first-round picks are there. The high-end talent is there. I don't know what this is going to look like in December when all the dust settles and they put a full season of work together. But when you talk about taking it from the top 11 to now the top 17 and being able to withstand some guys coming off the field, which is going to happen. Whit Weeks, targeting. A.J. Halsey, suspension. West Week, calf injury. Like, guys are going to get dinged up over the course of a season. We just talked about having, on the first series of the game against Florida State in the Superdome, Mason Smith tear an ACL, and you had two guys playing 75+% of the snaps on defense. That's ridiculous, especially up front. This group is immune to that right now. Now, you get four guys hurt at one position, well, nobody can withstand that in college football because there's no practice squad. There's no ability to go make a trade or sign somebody in free agency. You got what you got when you show up in August. But for right now, one guy goes down here or there, and I'm not pulling for that in any way. You've got somebody ready to step up. In the transfer portal era, where generally speaking your depth leaves, this staff over the course of the last 2 years has been able to create it, cultivate it, and put it out on the field for a team. And these snap counts are so encouraging that you can keep guys fresh and you're not going to wear down. And I believe it's sustainable because you've seen them in two hotly contested games, and it's not like, hey, they played a bunch of backups in the three non-conference games they played. No, the Tech game was fairly close in the end of the third quarter. So awesome stuff from this defensive depth they've cultivated. Is really, really, really good. We're off and running here on this Tuesday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Daryl May of Trusty Properties. When we come back, I want to transition over to the Saints, one position group that I had kind of high hopes for through 2 weeks not performing. We'll talk about it.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Highland Insurance Group, HighlandIG.com is that website. It is storm season. Right now, all is quiet, and that's awesome. Makes me a happy guy. But we know in this part of the world that it's an inherent risk that we live with. Storm season is going to come at the end of every summer. Make sure your property policy is properly written. If a renewal is coming up, even though there's not a storm in the Gulf right now, if renewal's coming up and your condition, just flip to that back page of the proposal and check out that premium. You can do that, but make sure that your limits are right. Make sure there's no funky exclusions in there that may catch you on the back end. What you don't want to have happen is a storm blows through, you have damage, you can't operate, you can't work, and now your insurance program is the cheap kind and not the properly written kind. The Highland Insurance Group will make sure that doesn't happen to you. That's why they keep business, because they make sure their clients are taken care of when that issue arises. Jonathan Carver and his team are first class. So right here in Baton Rouge, you can check them out online, HighlandIG.com. It's the Highland Insurance Group, HighlandIG.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Daryl May of Trusty Properties. Looking for land to hunt or build? Call Daryl May at Trusty Properties.
just heard there in the rejoin, our Tuesday show is brought to you by Daryl May of Trusty Properties. He's, of course, licensed realtor in Louisiana and Mississippi. I always tell you, if you're looking for that hunting property, looking for that second home in Mississippi, or getting out of the city, out of the hustle and bustle, going to the Felicianas or up to Woodville, Mississippi, Daryl's happy to do that. But the other piece that he is happy to help you with, and something that he's very, very excited about, if you've often thought of getting a condo or finding a lot in Pastoral, Mississippi, or in Bay St. Louis over on the coast, Daryl May's got access to those as well. Listings, some of the most premier listings on the Mississippi Gulf Coast, Daryl has access to and is happy to help you with that. So sometimes it's big land, big property, 30 acres, 300 acres in rural Louisiana or Mississippi. Sometimes it's a spot on the coast that may not have as much of a spacious feel, but has that waterfront look. Daryl's happy to help you with all of that. If you're looking for a second home or just getting out of the city like Daryl did. He's from Baton Rouge, went to Catholic High, decided, hey, St. Francisville is going to be home. There's a lot of folks that are in that boat. Contact Daryl May at Trusty Properties. Trusty Properties, a name you can trust. Before the Saints season started, I kind of pointed at two position groups that I really wanted to see some positive strides from beyond quarterback. That's the most obvious thing ever. You're in purgatory until you find a really good quarterback, and that is very much to be determined and is not really the point of this segment. There were two positions that I was looking at where they had young players that they had drafted highly that they needed to see real production from. The first was the offensive line, and that's very obvious, and those guys have gotten a decent grade thus far. But the second is the secondary. You took a high draft pick on Kool-Aid McKinstry. Alontae Taylor was a high draft pick for you. You feel like you may have a hit in Jonas Sanker, who you took early on. And these are some of the guys on rookie deals that you've invested capital into that you need to form the foundation of your secondary and the back end of your defense. And it is very, 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 very early right now. You have played 2 games. But right now, the returns in coverage are not awesome. The Saints right now are near the bottom of the NFL in terms of pass defense. And I would venture to say that Kyler Murray, Marvin Harrison Jr. and the Cardinals, and then Mac Jones and the 49ers with Juwan Jennings are not exactly the greatest passing offenses in the league. They're not the worst. They're far from the worst. But they're not the greatest. But you're looking at a Saints passing defense that just hasn't been able to put up much of a fight to this point. And it's concerning because you've got these guys out there that need to be playing well, and you've got a Saints defense that is just not there right now. And the Pro Football Focus grades reflect all of this. Julian Blackmon is the number 1 coverage graded player. 76.6, very good over 42 snaps in pass coverage. He's out for the year. So who's next? Well, it's Cam Jordan with 5 snaps. Who's next? Carl Granderson, 24 snaps. Who's next? Demario Davis, 77 snaps. Who's next? Chris Rumpf, 12. These are all linebackers and defensive linemen. You get the point. You've got to get to 6th on the list to Jonas Sanker, who's 65.3, and then you get to Kool-Aid McKinstry and Alontae Taylor, who are 64.0 and 63.7 respectively. And those guys, those grades are not awful, but they're not very good. And you go way down the pecking order to get down to Isaac Yiadom, who was on skates all day on Sunday afternoon. He's a 51.9 in coverage. These are some of your young guys. Now, I will say this. Alontae Taylor made a couple plays on the ball on Sunday. And Kool-Aid McKinstry had a tough assignment with Marvin Harrison Jr. in the first game, and that was a tough go. And I thought he was better in game 2. But those grades need to come up a little bit. This is not a segment that is designed to suggest that Kool-Aid McKinstry, Alontae Taylor, and then Isaac Yiadom are bust and can't help. It's just, okay, I'm watching, and you hadn't seen the best the NFL has to offer in terms of wide receiver play, and the statistics are not good, and the Pro Football Focus grades are not good. And then I'm watching on Sunday, and that doesn't look great either. So when I take the eye test, then the stat sheet, then the grades, and I put all those together, this level of play needs to come up. Now, that's the beauty of this thing, and it's so early. This segment could sound completely different after Thanksgiving because these guys get more reps, get more experience, stay healthy, play better. And that is really what you're looking for in this season. But again, I think you've played 2 passing attacks that should rank around the middle in the NFL, and they're getting after you a little bit. You go play Josh Allen, okay. You go play Burrow and Chase, okay. I could see that getting away from you a little bit. You go play Jaden and the guys he's got on the outside. Now that they finally made Terry McLaurin happy, okay. Like, there are some teams in this league that can really chuck it around. I don't know that I'm going to put Kyler Murray in that category yet, and I'm certainly not going to hurry Mac Jones to the podium. So this is something I'm paying attention to. This is something I'm looking at. You see Alontae Taylor with a grade of 63.7, Kool-Aid McKinstry with a grade of 64.0. Those in the Pro Football Focus world are not terrible, but they're very, very average. I'd like to see those start to creep up towards 70 if you could. And I'll throw Jonas Sanker in there, who's right there around that number. They're all between 63.7 and 65.3. They're all bunched right up in there. Let's see if those numbers start to improve as the Saints continue to play over the course of a couple of weeks. You got Sam Darnold coming up this week. You got Josh Allen the week after that. That's no picnic. But waiting in the wings are a look at the Giants with Russell Wilson and Malik. And then you've got the Patriots, Drake May and company, whatever. So I just need to see some more strides from those guys. I looked at Ross Jackson's piece, statistically speaking, on LouisianaSports.net, and he thinks that the Saints' passing defense is going to be one of the biggest question marks in this game against Sam Darnold and the Seahawks offense. Darnold threw for 295 against the Steelers, only 150 against the 49ers. So, again, Darnold had a nice year last year. This is very average stuff you're looking at. It needs to get a little bit better week over week. I'm allowing for that. I'm not here to go nuts here. Just something I'm taking a peek at. That's your look at the New Orleans Saints here when it comes to their passing defense. You're looking for more Saints coverage. You can find it at LouisianaSports.net. Ross got you covered there. He's got tons of pieces that are flying up, about 4 a day over for free on LouisianaSports.net. If you want my Saints coverage, you can find it at Hunt on Saints. That's Hunt on Saints on YouTube or wherever you find your podcast. Our Tuesday show is brought to you by Daryl May of Trusty Properties. We still got a ton to get to. LSU got a legacy commitment in baseball yesterday. I want to talk about that in about 15, 20 minutes. I think hour 2 is going to be a lot of fun. We'll have Colin Jeter come in and chat with us about what he saw from the Tigers against Florida and what he thinks moving forward into the Southeastern game. Hunter Yurchek, Arkansas's athletic director, had a very interesting sit-down with the Little Rock Touchdown Club. I know we don't cover Arkansas, but I thought that what he had to say was very, very poignant for all SEC teams, and I'll kind of give my thoughts on LSU's perspective of it at 2:15. Sharif Ishak talking some more Saints at 2:30. So lock us in for the rest of the show. We got about 90 minutes left. When we come back, Glen West, Go 24/7, going to be with us talking Tigers next.
The Hunt Palmer Show. This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Daryl May of Trusty Properties. Looking for land to hunt or build? Call Daryl May at Trusty Properties.
Work week's off to a good start. Appreciate you hanging out with us on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Bottom of hour number 1 on Tuesday means it's time to chat with our guy Glen West, Go 24/7. All your team coverage, recruiting coverage, they got you covered over there at Go 24/7. Joins us on Tuesdays. Glen, how are you?
I'm doing well, Hunt. How about yourself?
I'm quite well. Tell me about the press conference setting after the game. Obviously, we know Michael Caldwell got that first question, and Brian Kelly had what he had to say, and then he kind of apologized yesterday. What did you make of the entirety of the interaction? Less about like what Brian Kelly said, more about the coaches and the offense and all that goes into the dynamics there.
Yeah, I think it was just, something that immediately after the game, he was just not willing to talk or wanting to talk about right out of the gates, right? I think that he was maybe expecting some questions on the defense or on just winning a big game like that, the SEC opener. And look, I mean, everybody knows that this offense has a lot of room to improve. And Brian Kelly spent 25 minutes with us talking about it yesterday after everything. So I think it was the right move by Cobble to ask those questions. I think it was the right move by Brian Kelly to apologize on Monday, and they're both adults, and you just squash it and you move on. But I think just from an overall offensive perspective here, there's just so much that this group has to work on this week and really over the next couple of weeks. And I think probably at the forefront for me is just going to be about greater efficiency, trying to get this thing to a place where they can move the ball consistently and finish off drives. I think probably one of the bigger takeaways that I've had from Brian Kelly all season here over the last 3 weeks has been just about how they really feel like they can build a good offense with a great defense here. Like that's something that he's really talked a lot about over the last couple of press conferences, is that they know what they have in this defense. They know it can be great. Can they get the offensive efficiency up a little bit to match or to complement more of what this defense has been and is going to continue to be? So I think that's the biggest takeaway I've taken from Kelly his last couple of press conferences. And obviously these next couple of weeks are going to be huge as they try to, also not run Garrett Nussmeier into the ground kind of thing here while he's still getting through the finishing parts of this torso injury that we learned about on Monday.
What's the biggest thing the offense needs right now?
I would probably say more explosiveness. Like I think that, everything so far to me, at least just my bird's eye view of looking at it, has been very just, cut and dry and vanilla. And they're just trying to get, a lot of these guys the ball in the short and intermediate field and really over the middle of the field. They haven't really attacked the perimeter as much as I thought that they would with guys like Nick Anderson and Chris Hilton. And certainly I think Barryon Brown can do that. I think Aaron Anderson's capable of doing that as well. But they have not been able to really unlock that part of the offense yet. And look, maybe a part of that has been because they've been trying to, keep Nuss from getting, keep trying to save Nuss a little bit with this injury that he's been dealing with. Maybe a little bit of it is because they're trying to still get, this offensive line up to speed. I think there's a lot of different ways that they can get these playmakers the ball and that those guys can go make plays for them. They just haven't been able to hit on some of those more explosive plays down the field yet. I think that if they're able to get the ball on the perimeter and able to open up this offense a little bit more, it's just going to unlock a whole bunch of different things that they can do. Look, I think that, one of the bigger kind of catchphrases is that the run can set up the pass, but I think it works both ways, and that the passing game can also open up the run. And, I think defenses right now are keying in on LSU's run game and saying, hey, Garrett Nussmeier, go beat us with your arm. And, at least these last couple weeks, that has been a little bit more tricky for him to figure out as he's getting through this, whatever this injury is, this torso injury. And it sounds like he's on the back end of it, and hopefully he'll continue to get better and better. But, right now I would still anticipate defenses saying, hey, until LSU starts showing that they can beat us down the field, we're going to continue to load these boxes up, and we're going to continue to be pretty aggressive here in the backfield.
Let me play devil's advocate for a second. Clemson didn't do much on offensively against Troy, didn't do much offensively against Georgia Tech. Florida did not do anything offensively against South Florida. Is that part of the reason the LSU defense has had so much success?
I don't know. You can only see what you see from this defense, and I think this defense is championship level here. I thought that they did such a great job of getting after DJ Lagway and making him uncomfortable early in that game. They did a great job of getting after Cade Klubnik and making him uncomfortable early in that game. I think this defense is legit, and you could say yes, maybe the Clemson offense and the Florida offense have underperformed to what many thought they could be going into the season. But I think you can also say the same thing about LSU's defense in that they've exceeded expectations and exceeded a lot of what people thought they could potentially be this year. So, look, I think the Ole Miss game is going to give us some more clarity there. I think Ole Miss has probably a pretty decent offense, and they'll be Lane Kiffin is always somebody that has some tricks up his sleeve, and I'm sure they'll try to test LSU's defense in a number of different ways. But, again, the big thing with my whole spiel about the defense is I've just been so impressed with how quickly this has come together and how you can lose your two captains, your inside linebackers, and Whit Weeks and West Weeks at various points in that game, and still not be derailed by that or be deterred by that, and you can still have really, really strong performances. So I just think it's more LSU's defense being that special and that good, more so than maybe the Florida and Clemson offenses maybe not being as highly, as performing as well as maybe they thought going into the year.
Think they'll get Chris Hilton going?
I sure hope so. Like I've been pounding the drum on Chris Hilton all off season. He was healthy this whole off season. I think back in the spring, you could see some of the ways that LSU was going to try to get him involved deep down the field, but look, he hasn't had. I think he's had one catch for -2 yards in the fumble here through 3 games, and it's just been very much not what I had expected coming into the year. I thought that they would test him, they would throw the ball deep with him and Nussmeier. Maybe that's still coming, but I also noticed here over the last week against Florida, I didn't see him on the field as much. I don't know what his actual snap count was in the Florida game, but it was a lot of Barryon Brown. It was a lot of Aaron Anderson, Xavion Thomas. I think even probably a little bit more Nick Anderson than I saw with Chris Hilton. So Hilton, I think, is somebody that if they are able to get going, just adds such an important layer to this offense that they really need. I hope that they can get it done, but it's right now. You're banking on the hope part as far and as much as what you've seen from him on the field so far just hasn't matched up to what I think, at least I thought he could be coming into the year.
21 snaps for Chris Hilton against Florida on Saturday night. We saw a lot of Michael Van Buren in camp. Saw more of him when Garrett Nussmeier wasn't throwing the last week. He figures to get some action against Southeastern this weekend. Where are you with his development and your comfort in him having to play in a ball game?
I'd love to see him play a lot this weekend, to be honest with you. I think if the first team LSU offense can get out there, score a couple touchdowns with Nussmeier under center, put this game away pretty early, I have no problem turning it over to Michael Van Buren for the final 2 quarters, 2.5 quarters, whatever it may be. More so just to kind of get Nuss some extra time on the bench and just some extra, rest on that torso injury. Anything that they can do to help speed that process along, I think would be really beneficial to LSU. I don't expect him not to play this weekend. I think he's going to play, and I think he's probably going to play until LSU pulls away here. But I do think that Michael Van Buren is somebody that I'd love to see get some really significant snaps this weekend, because you never know. With injuries and with quarterbacks, you gotta have the next guy ready to go. And I think it would be really important for LSU to get some game reps in for him. I'll be honest with you, I thought towards the end of fall camp he was starting to show some better signs of learning the offense, picking things up. I thought those days where Nussmeier didn't throw the ball, I thought he did an okay job of handling the offense. But it was the same thing every day practically of fall camp that we were out there. The defense was very much winning the most days over the offense. So I'd love to see Michael Van Buren get some reps this weekend. I'd love to see maybe even Colin Hurley get a couple snaps or a couple drives towards the end of the game as well. So I think, but all of that is going to be rooted in how much Nussmeier and this first team offense are able to go out there and maybe click a little quicker and try to put this game away pretty soon.
Anything else you're looking for on Saturday? It should be a pretty lopsided affair.
Yeah, I think probably just getting a lot of the defensive depth, in this game. Like I think you could, this would be a perfect game to extend a guy like Deshaun Spears' snap counts. He only played 9 snaps, and he had the biggest impact of any defensive player on the game last weekend. And so, getting him some more snaps would certainly be great. I think getting, some of the young linebackers involved, some of the young defensive tackles or defensive linemen involved will be good. And just, maybe not running the first team defense, into the ground kind of thing with, playing the entire game. I think you can stretch this out if you're able to pull away and you're able to get off the field consistently, like I would imagine that they will on defense. So it should just be an opportunity, I think, for a lot of players to play. I wouldn't rush West Weeks back and for this game. I think if he's still kind of bouncing back from that injury to his calf, just let it rest and try to maybe get him ready for Ole Miss. But I think it's just going to be an opportunity for a lot of different players to play, and hopefully they show that they have some elite depth behind a lot of the guys that have been playing so far.
I had Sonny on yesterday, but your thoughts on Peyton Houston's commitment and what that may mean with Colton Nussmeier and Elijah Haven still around the corner?
Yeah, Houston's a really talented player. I mean, I think from LSU's perspective, those 3 are the top 3 guys that they had on their board for 2027, and they were never going to tell one of them no if they were ready to pull the trigger on an offer or pull the trigger on a commitment, I should say. And Peyton Houston, I think, is probably one of the more talented just throwers of the ball in this entire class. I think he's very advanced in that respect. And so it's a big one for LSU because it's not only the quarterback, but it's the first commitment of this 2027 class. It's got a really loaded group of Louisiana prospects, and Peyton Houston's got a 4.0 GPA. He's very smart, very mature, very talented young man who I think is going to help LSU really try to get the best class that they can here over the next 15, 16 months before signing day of 2027. So very big deal that they're able to get him on board. I still think they'll recruit Elijah Haven. I still think they'll recruit Colton Nussmeier. You have to stay on top of all those guys in this day and age of recruiting. But LSU fans should be ecstatic with Peyton Houston. I think he's a really, really talented football player.
Thank you, Glenn. We'll talk next week.
All right. Thanks, Hunt.
He's Glen West, senior writer over at Go 24/7, covering the Tigers, football, basketball, baseball, recruiting. They got you covered over there at Go 24/7. We'll come back. Familiar name committed to LSU baseball yesterday. We'll tell you who it is and what the last 4 days have been like for Jay Johnson's program. It's been pretty good. We'll talk about it next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Genesis of Baton Rouge. GenesisofBatonRouge.com is the website. Every car that's on the lot is online at GenesisofBatonRouge.com. It's a great way to familiarize yourself with the Genesis line of vehicles, which you may not have been behind the wheel of. You can do it at GenesisofBatonRouge.com. Or if you'd like to rent a car from the folks at Genesis, you can do that. Maybe you're heading up to Oxford, Mississippi next weekend to watch the Tigers play. And you don't want to put those miles on your car, but also might want to take a look at what a Genesis feels like, drives like, get that experience. Well, go over to Airline at PQ, knock on the door, say, hey, like to rent a car. They can do that for you. At Genesis of Baton Rouge, you can get in the GV80. It's an SUV. If you're looking for a sedan, you can do that as well. Just get a feel for what that ride is like. It's an experience that you won't soon forget. It's a luxury brand at a reasonable price. That's the Genesis model. So go by and see them, Airline at PQ. Check out that entire inventory at GenesisofBatonRouge.com. GenesisofBatonRouge.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Daryl May of Trusty Properties. Looking for land to hunt or build? Call Daryl May at Trusty Properties.
Wrapping up hour number 1 here. Tuesday show is brought to you by Daryl May of Trusty Properties, licensed realtor in Louisiana and Mississippi. You'll see those blue signs all over Baton Rouge, Trusty Properties. Contact Daryl May if you're looking for some land outside the city, spot on the Mississippi coast. Daryl's happy to help you with that. It's most of what he does. So he's happy to assist you with that if it's your dream to own some property outside of the city. A familiar name to Tiger fans came across the old ticker or LouisianaSports.net yesterday, as it may be. Drake Haupt son of Brad Hop, committed to LSU baseball yesterday. Brad, of course, on the 2000 national championship team, was the big hulking first baseman who absolutely eviscerated a ball off of Mark Pryor that may not have landed in Omaha at that point. It may have flown all the way to Council Bluffs. It certainly was headed toward the zoo at the very best. In the 2000 run, Brad would go on to play 9 years in the major leagues, made the all-star team for the Colorado Rockies, also tormented a young Hunt Palmer after he had a home run off Mark Pryor in the 2000 College World Series in Omaha. In the majors, Mark Pryor was coming back from a huge injury, threw a pitch. Hop was hitting at Wrigley, lined a pitch off of Pryor's elbow, caused him to miss more time. Just a disaster for a young Hunt who was pulling for the Cubs. I'm not sure Brad was too concerned, but Brad's son, now of age to commit to LSU, and Drake got a lot of his dad's attributes. He's 6'4", which is bigger than his dad, and he hits left-handed. So you got a powerful left-handed bat from the state of Texas in the 2027 class in Drake Hop. And that was kind of the end of a ridiculous run of 4 days for LSU baseball. They landed two-way star Lawton Littleton, who's from over in Lake Charles, who's left-handed pitcher and a left-handed hitter. They added right-handed pitcher Sean Parro, who's a 6'5" right-hander, one of the top 5 right-handed pitchers in the state of California, who throws in the mid-90s over there at Sierra Canyon. He pledged on Monday. Barb outfielder Jordan Griffin committed to LSU baseball. He's a left-handed hitter and an outfield and a really good baseball player. And they also got a commitment back on Saturday from left-handed pitcher Cade Luker, who's the number 2 player in the state of Louisiana and a top 60 player nationally. This is something that I want to point out, and it's something that has been very, very apparent to me as I've listened to Jay Johnson talk and then as I've watched LSU in recruiting. Luker is a left-handed pitcher. Griffin is a left-handed hitting outfielder. Lawton is a left-handed pitcher and hitter, and Hop is a left-handed hitter. Only in that group of 5 commitments is Sean Parro a right-handed player. Jay Johnson has talked about this a lot. He has been following in the lead of Augie Garrido, who told him once, you need to build your teams around the strength of left-handed pitching and left-handed hitting. The thought process being, you can generally find another right-handed bat. You can generally find another right-handed arm. It's very difficult to find another really quality left-handed hitter or left-handed pitcher. And you look at some of the infielders that Jay Johnson has brought in the last few seasons, and you see a lot of guys that swing the bat left-handed. Stephen Milam's a switch hitter, but that means he can hit left-handed. You look at Tanner Reeves, who he brought in, can obviously hit left-handed. You look at some of the guys they brought in at first base, and you go over to Grand Canyon, and you get York, who hits left-handed, and you go to Kansas State and you get Dardar, who hits left-handed. They find left-handed bats all over the place. I mean, Curiel, you're going to find. But if you look at actually the draft class, the guys that were signing, they had 4 different left-handed hitting options that did not make it to campus in this class. It's hard to find lefties. There just aren't that many of them. And Jay Johnson is always going to search high and low for guys that swing the bat left-handed. And he certainly has done that in this class. And those guys are very easy to find at first base and certainly in the outfield. It's very difficult to find good left-handed hitting infield options. But he has. And certainly Milam is one of those, and there were some in this class that didn't make it to campus. It's something that he has the luxury to do here at LSU, to go find the best of the best. Sometimes they're not here in Louisiana or East Texas. You got to go to California. You got to go to Indiana. You got to go to Florida or across the country to find them. But he has, and it's something he believes in, and it's something that I'm starting to really take note of as you look at it. I mean, look at LSU's outfield next year that's got Curiel and Brown in it. They both hit left-handed. Ashton Larson was here. He didn't recruit Josh Pearson, but I mean, he recruited Josh Pearson at the very end. Pearson was already committed to LSU, and Pearson was on that first team. But it's something that you're not going to find a lot of left-handed hitting catchers. He did go find Brady Neal, which is rare. But you can find him elsewhere, and he's done a great job of that. This is a heck of a run. I'm not going to talk a ton about baseball recruiting on this show. I'm really only doing it in this case because Haup is a legacy, and Brad Haupt's name resonates with a lot of you around Baton Rouge. And because they got 5 guys in 3 days, that's a ridiculous run. Jay Johnson is using these home football weekends very, very well in getting these recruits committed. But I also just thought it was interesting to see just how many left-handers he continues to pull in. And it's not going to stop anytime soon. Jay Johnson is a beast on the recruiting trail. We know this. We understand this. And the proof is in the pudding. I was driving down Nicholson to the game on Saturday and saw that they have repainted the back, not the front that faces the field, the back that faces Nicholson. The Intimidator has all 8 trophies on the back. It looks quite nice. 8 trophies looks good on the back of the Intimidator. If you're driving by Nicholson, or if you're coming into campus for the game this weekend and haven't seen that, just take a look up. 8 trophies, quite nice. I often think about the folks in College Station and Fayetteville, Arkansas when I see that, and it warms my heart because they've got none. 8 in Baton Rouge. That's it for hour number 1 here. Our Tuesday show is brought to you by Daryl May of Trusty Properties. If you missed any of it, catch it on demand. I opened the show talking about LSU's depth on defense, using some snap counts from Pro Football Focus. It's awesome to see how much depth they are tapping into and how few snaps a lot of these guys, especially on the defensive line, are playing. You can catch that at Hunt on LSU, wherever you find your sound. Also talked a little bit about the Saints and how they are not covering right now. We got a lot to get to in hour number 2. We'll start things off with former Tiger Colin Jeter. We'll also talk Sharif Ishaq at the bottom of the hour. We'll come back after Sports International headlines on The Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
One Bath and Closets. OneBathAndClosets.com is the website. David Duvall and his team, 30 years redesigning and remodeling bathrooms and closets. I tell you all this story personally all the time because it's relevant. I had a home that I loved in a neighborhood I loved, and my wife, but was then girlfriend, moved in. She looked at the closets and went, "This is a disaster. I have nowhere to put anything." And we ended up putting clothes in the hallway closet, up in the attic, in the kids' closet. Like, it was a mess because we didn't have enough room. And we could have called David and gotten that fixed, but we knew we were going to move when baby number 2 arrived, and we ended up doing that, so we weren't going to do that in that old house. But you don't have to move if you love where you are, love your interest rate, but you need more closet space. David and his whole team can come in and completely open things up for you. They can build a new closet for you or just help you use your current space a little bit more efficiently. Start that process with a free consultation with David. He will customize a gorgeous and functional closet for you. It's One Bath and Closets. Find them online at onebathandclosets.com.